Hey people, Seth here. Today I am reviewing a game called Modern Age, and this is gonna be probably a completely unnecessarily long review, but I'm gonna get into it anyway. I'm gonna start off with some of the more mundane aspects of the game before I get into the more interesting stuff, and then share a bit of the story of the playthrough I am currently experiencing. So, the mechanics of the game are pretty simple. There's really only two things you need to do. Click on a thing you want to do and wait. Very, very straightforward, pretty simple stuff. The more complicated aspect of this is getting everything you want to do aligned with each other. So there's a few different things we can do in this game. Let's start off with the research, which is basically broken up into three categories, and they all do slightly different things. We have our economics, which will help with our funding and our resources, our warfare, which is obviously going to help with our soldiers of varying degrees, and our diplomacy, which affects how other countries perceive us and what we can legally get away with. So, in our main menu, we have four different sections. We basically have our monetary section, our military section, our international section, and our national section. So let's start off with our national section. We have our population, which just gives you basic rundown of how many people you have in your country and how many of those people are doing what things. We have statistics I'm not going to go into. Now, I'm after choosing Ireland because obviously I'm Irish. So in this section, this is all basically about keeping your people happy. As you can see in the top right corner, I have 85 stars out of what I'm presuming to be 100, since I've never actually gotten that high. But you need to keep this level above 10 stars, otherwise your people are going to revolt and you are going to be kicked out of power, which is what happened to me in my first playthrough. So we have environment, which basically I don't particularly care about, but hey, I'm a green freak and I don't like trash absolutely everywhere, so I've put a little bit of funding into that. We also have environmental disasters we can help prevent, but honestly, it's cheaper for me to pay for your funeral than actually prevent any of these measures from happening. We have our housing and utility structures, which has really only gotten worse since I've come into power, and I do as minimal work as possible to just help prevent people from revolting against me and slightly increase my population as we go. We have Ministry of Sport, which pretty much does nothing. We have the Ministry of Culture, which I've also heavily invested in to keep the people distracted from the shitty conditions I'm actually keeping them in and to ignore my war crimes. Then we have Ministry of Health, which I've also put zero funding into because, as I said before, it is cheaper for me to pay for your funeral. We have our international relations. This is a big part of the game because as you grow as a country, as you want to expand, you're going to have to do some less than ethical things. And if you aren't making friends with people, you're going to make even more enemies in the process of your aggressive expansion. We have the United Nations. Occasionally, little pop-ups will appear where you are given different policies, international policies to vote on, where you can also bribe other countries that are bigger than you and have more votes than you to effectively side with what you want to happen, which is surprisingly cheap. I can buy, like 100 votes from the USA for like 2.5 grand out of my 800,000. This is pretty good. I can essentially do whatever the fuck I want. We have the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, which obviously I need quite high since I am totally not committing war crimes and I need people to be okay with that, or to at least understand it. We have pretty much every country in the world where you will have different relations with, and you can, I'll come back to this in a little bit, and different countries are going to ask for help, which will affect how they perceive you, whether they're neutral, whether you're harmonious with them. Generally, when you help these countries, you will get a big boost to how that country perceives you. Pretty straightforward. We have our military section, which covers everything from infantrymen, tanks, cannons. You can read it all. You can either train these people in if you have the correct resources, or just buy them, which is, in my opinion, much easier. We can also affect the level of them, so I might only have 5,000 infantrymen, and you might have 7,500 infantrymen, but if my guys have a higher level than yours, then it's still gonna balance out. You can also add infrastructure to add more of these troops. These troops are also the National Guard, which are for okay, go for it. Jeez. God damn it. Fucking up my video. We have the National Guard, which is basically all about taking care of whatever countries you decide to invade, which I've also put zero funding into. And the Ministry of Defense, which is for at home, which I've put a little bit into just in case I piss off the wrong people someday. The police, just in case people are revolting, but I think it's cheaper and easier to just invest in cinemas to distract the people from how terrible of a person you actually are. And the security service, which is all about your sabotage and espionage. So to do any of this, it's going to require resources. Unfortunately, I started off in little bumfuck Ireland, which has access to zero resources except for wood and rocks, which is brilliant. So to build these places, we need electricity to actually help them function. So I am stuck in a perpetual loop of building power plants and then building more resources until hopefully I reach the point where I am earning as many resources in the space of a week as it takes me to actually build a new one, and then we're going to be in a perpetual state of growth. You can also use these resources to fund more food, which will help keep your people happy and population slightly rise. And you can take the 89,000 meat you have and sell it for an extremely low price to another country. But I find it more useful to just gift it to another country to aid your international relations, to once again look the other way as you ethnically cleanse a country much smaller and much more defenseless than you. You can also build your different resources to help train in your military here. So this is the main menu I'm just after covering here, and oh, I haven't even covered that. That was just production. We have to manage our taxes, which I have extremely high, but nobody seems to matter because they're too busy paying for cinema tickets. We have trade with other countries, which is they're going to need to like you enough to actually want to trade with you in the first place. And depending on the resource you are actually looking for, different countries will be more beneficial to actually trade with. So Republic of, or the Vatican City State, Mexico. In fact, China. China will give us 1,000 units of wood for 97 coins a piece, whereas somewhere like, Cyprus is going to do it for 112. And for the more rare resources, this is going to be more expensive again. God damn, why did you have to shower right now? As you can see, oil is a little more pricey with France. It's hitting the 300s instead of just one. Then, what else do we got? We can buy and sell. Selling is fucking useless. Just gift it to other countries to look the other way. We have different laws we can implement to either help with their military expansion or with our civil obedience, let's just say. We have different ideologies of which will give you different benefits. We're trying to adopt nationalism because I am so fucked on actual production. Again, little bumfuck country, Ireland. We only have rocks and wood, so I need a lot of it to be able to build enough to trade fast enough. And I'm hoping that nationalism will be added onto conservatism instead of just completely overlapping it, in which case I will also adopt socialism for a bigger birth rate. Storage facilities, pretty self-explanatory. I have invested in my Ministry of Education, mainly because this all helps with how people produce things once they're out of school and have a goddamn job as either a lumberjack, a miner, or an electrician. We have science and research, which is pretty much useless to me other than the food industry, my military industry, and harvesting power and rocks and wood. Then the Ministry of Infrastructure, I don't care how you get around, I don't care how you get there. All that matters to me is my information comes back fast and my military takes over countries fast. That's all that fucking matters. Then we have the world map, which is currently going to look like a bit of a mess. So this actually has pretty much every country in the entire world, and the pretty accurate borders as well. There's places I haven't heard of or even realized were real places to begin with. And it has a little click on button so you can see how your relations are doing with them. All these little lines are places we currently have ongoing missions, which could be as much as taking down a couple Somalian pirates, or building a, what do you call it? An embassy in another country. Once you click on any country, there's three options. You can take military action, you can take diplomatic action, or you can simply gift them. So what I've done here is essentially, since I'm a tiny ass country with a tiny ass military, I have been sucking the dicks of every single country that is close to me that has a larger force than I do, because I don't want to be destroyed for just straight up mauling a weaker, more defenseless country. So yeah, I jack these guys off, I keep them happy, and they ignore anything I do. And improving my national relations with them can be done by gifting them with the army, which they already have plenty more than I do, which I can give gifts, which I find pretty handy, as I can just give them fucking 18,000 Hershey bars or 90,000 batches of Pat the Baker's bread. And again, they'll look away from my war crimes. Or I can simply... 2 minutes, sweetheart. I can simply click on them and recognize that they are a country that exists. We appreciate your support. You are welcome. And I can do that once a year. This is the easiest way to keep other countries happy, is simply reminding them that they exist and you know about it. Then we have our diplomatic solutions, which, despite having invested heavily in, I still find extremely difficult. It's pretty easy to build a representation office, or excuse me. Fuck me. Representation office, or a embassy, as most people might call it. You can open up trade with them once you're simply neutral, and once you have a representation office, you can also make a research contract with them, which will increase your research by 1%. Defensive alliances and non-aggression pacts are extremely hard to get, even once you've maxed out your friendliness, or your attitude with that said country. You can also see what countries produce what resources, what religion they are, and how many votes they have. This way you can decide what countries you need to trade with early, what countries you're going to need to send in missionaries, and yeah, which countries you want to assimilate. Then you can take military action, which espionage. You get to find out how many. It tells us here the balance of our forces. It tells us the strength of the army, but how many ground troops do they have? How many aviation or marine troops do they have? Nuclear war is very expensive. I've not been able to access it yet. Make a revolution, I have not tried. We can also ask countries to attack other countries. So I can ask Iran to attack Austria. And it is surprisingly cheap to get a country to attack another country. Let's just type in, oh, okay, maybe that's relative to how much the country likes you, as I was told earlier on that it would cause negative international consequences if I was to attack, not France, I can't even remember the name of this country anymore, but I basically told Belgium, this little Belgian flag here, hey, can you attack this country for me? It's tiny and defenseless. And they did it for 30,000. Like, they just straight up waltzed in there for 30,000. First, I went in, I espionaged their troops to see exactly what they had. Then I sent in sabotage to help destroy a little bit of that. I convinced Belgium to walk in and soften up the remainder of their troops before I walked in there myself. Unfortunately, I think the strongest army currently in that territory gains control once the country is defeated. So I will not be asking for help again, and I am currently in the middle of attempting to take over Comoros, which I will get no more resources for, and I'm currently looking for more resource-rich places with weaker militaries I can assimilate into my own countries. And yeah, that's pretty much it. Make friends with other countries, suck their dicks so they don't attack you, and attack weaker and smaller ones until you build up bigger resources to fund more of an army to attack bigger countries. And yeah, that's pretty much it. But I think this game's a lot of fun. It's pretty interesting to think of how all of this would actually be working and how it would go over in the real world. But yeah, it's a fun little game, but the main criticism about it is it's basically fucking impossible to do any of this again without funding, which you are straight up not going to have enough of. Even if you tax the absolute shit out of your own population, you are going to need to watch a lot of ads or just buy money, which is a little confusing as to if daily payments is you were receiving 10,000 coins per day, or you were paying €3 a day or $3 a day for that 10,000 coins. So might want to be a little bit sketchy at that, but I find this game a lot of fun. It's pretty complex, it's pretty deep. I've only given a very basic overview of it, even with all the shit I've talked about it. But yeah, highly recommend it. It's a free game. If you're willing to spend a bit of time watching ads or drop just a little bit of money on it, it's a lot of fun. Yeah, thanks for watching the video. Hope you enjoyed. Peace out.